Okay, let's jump right into this. We've got a really um, quite astonishing set of sources here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at reports about this operation called Spiderweb.
That's right. Ukraine's alleged drone attack deep inside Russia back on June 1st. It's quite the story as presented.
And our goal here for you listening is really just to unpack what these specific articles and reports are claiming.
Exactly. We'll look at the details they provide on the planning, how it supposedly went down, the results they reported.
All strictly based on the material we have in front of us.
Yep. We're your guides through these sources. We're distilling the key bits, the reported scale, the methods, the targets, the alleged outcomes.
No outside info, no taking sides, just laying out what the sources say.
And why should you care? Well, because the details here, as reported, they give this rare glimpse into, well, how tactics might be evolving.
And the sheer logistical challenges in modern conflict, it's quite something.
Right. Let's get into it. So, first off, setting the scene, the scale of this thing.
As described in the sources, it's just breathtaking.
We're talking over 100 drones, they say, hitting multiple air bases.
And not just anywhere, but deep inside Russia, all supposedly on June 1st.
What really stands out is the geography, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The sources mention attacks across, several time zones?
Yeah, from Murmansk way up north, Arctic Circle stuff, all the way over to the Amur region.
Which is over 8,000 kilometers from Ukraine, reportedly.
8,000 kilometers. I mean, just think about that distance.
It immediately makes you wonder, as these sources point out, how do you even defend against something that's spread out?
And President Zelensky, according to the reports, gave a very specific number.
He did. 117 drones was the claim.
Now, we should be clear, the Russian Defense Ministry did confirm attacks.
Right, in 5 regions the sources name: Murmansk, Irkutsk, Ivanovo, Ryazan, Amur. So they acknowledge something happened there.
But their version of events, according to the sources, differs quite a bit on the damage.
Yeah, they reportedly said planes were damaged only in Murmansk and Irkutsk. Everywhere else, they claimed the attacks were stopped.
And there's that detail in the sources, that picture.
Oh, you mean the SBU chief, Vasyl Malyuk?
Yeah, looking at a satellite map, and apparently you can see bases marked in those exact regions.
It kind of anchors the locations mentioned in the reports, doesn't it? Puts them on the map, so to speak.
Exactly. Okay, so that's the reported scale.
Yeah.
Huge. But the method, this is where it gets really wild.
This is the astonishing ingenuity part the sources talk about, the concealment.
It sounds like something out of a movie. But the core claim is smuggling the drones inside wooden cabins.
Ordinary-looking cabins, yeah, mounted on the back of lorries.
And hidden how?
Below these remotely operated detachable roofs. That's the detail provided.
Wow. And the lorries, how did they supposedly get near the targets?
Well, the sources claim they used drivers who apparently had no idea what they were actually carrying.
So just hired to drive a cabin somewhere.
Seems like it. Given instructions, drive to a location near an airbase. That's the story.
And then what? Drones just pop out.
Launched right from the lorries once they were parked up. That's the reported sequence.
There's that incredible anecdote, too, reported by RIA Novosti.
Oh, the lorry driver. Yeah, that's memorable.
Trying to knock down drones with rocks as they flew out.
Yeah, he's quoted saying something like, "We threw stones to keep them from flying up, keep them pinned down."
Can you even imagine? It's
Mhm.
just bizarre.
Almost surreal. And the sources also mentioned this Telegram channel, Baza.
Right, linked to Russian security services, apparently.
Yeah, and they reportedly had similar stories. Unverified, mind you, but drivers booked by businessmen for cabin deliveries.
Getting phone calls telling them where to park.
And then boom, drones flying out, drivers stunned.
What these sources seem to be suggesting with this method is a potential new level of hiding military action within completely normal civilian activity.
Exactly. How do you spot that? It highlights a massive security challenge if true.
And the prep time. How long did they allegedly work on this?
The sources mention 18 months. Or Zelensky had a very precise figure.
1 year, 6 months, and 9 days. Specific.
And the reports also state President Zelensky himself directly supervised it.
Which, again, underlines the importance placed on this operation within the source material.
Now, there's a disagreement in the reports about the people inside Russia who supposedly helped.
Right. Zelensky's claim, as reported, is they got them out safely.
Withdrawn from Russian territory. Now safe, I think was the quote.
But Russia, according to the sources, says they've detained people connected to it.
Yes, a direct counterclaim. And there was that small detail, reportedly deleted later.
About looking for a specific Ukrainian-born guy near one of the airfields.
Yeah, Belaya Airfield, which kind of fits with Russia's claim of detentions, as presented in the sources.
Okay, so huge scale, incredibly creative, alleged method.
What about the drones? What were they like?
Well, according to Dr. Steve Wright, the UK drone expert cited in the sources, they were described as pretty simple black quadcopters.
Not some super advanced tech, then. Apparently not the drones themselves, but they reportedly carried relatively heavy payloads. What he found extraordinary.
What's getting them in?
Exactly. Smuggling them in on that scale and then launching and commanding them remotely. That's the logistical feat highlighted.
Yeah, getting them thousands of kilometers inside and then controlling them precisely. That is the challenge.
How could they command them? Dr. Wright suggested maybe via satellite link.
Or the internet, perhaps.
Could be. And Zelensky added that detail. Each drone, all 117, supposedly had its own pilot.
117 pilots. Wow. That's a huge remote operation team, if accurate.
Massive coordination. And what about jamming? Russian electronic warfare.
Good question. Could they stop them?
Dr. Wright's theory, as reported, was maybe they used GPS initially, but then perhaps switched to manual remote piloting for the final attack phase to get around any local jamming near the bases.
Makes sense. And where do the drones come from?
The sources say Kyiv hasn't shared those details.
But they do note, Ukraine has gotten pretty good at making drones since the war started.
Right, so it suggested they could well have been domestically produced for this.
And there were pictures, right?
Yeah.
The SBU images.
Yeah, showing dozens of these small black drones neatly packed inside those wooden cabins in a warehouse somewhere.
Seems to visually back up the cabin story.
And Russian military bloggers reportedly claimed they'd even found that warehouse location in Chelyabinsk.
Okay, let's shift to the targets and the outcomes, which seem highly contested.
Very much so. The primary targets identified in the sources are these big strategic bombers.
The Tu-95s, Tu-22s, Tu-160s, the missile carriers,
And also the A-50 spy planes.
and the justification given by SBU head Malyuk.
He's quoted saying they're absolutely legitimate targets because they're used to bomb Ukrainian cities.
And these targets are valuable. The sources mentioned the Tu-95s, for example, launching those KH-101 cruise missiles recently.
Yeah, each bomber can reportedly carry 8 of those missiles, and each missile has like a 400-kilogram warhead. Significant firepower.
And the A-50s, the spy planes.
Described as really critical assets for Russia, they help intercept Ukrainian missiles, guide Russian strikes.
And there aren't many of them.
According to Budanov, the intelligence chief, back in February 2024, the estimate was Russia only had about 8 left.
So losing even one or having one damaged, that would be a serious blow, as the sources suggest.
Definitely, given their reported scarcity and importance.
Okay, now the big divergence. The claimed results. Ukraine's version.
President Zelensky, quoted in the sources, said, Russia has had very tangible losses.
Very specific numbers were claimed too, right?
Yes, 41 strategic bombers hit and at least 13 actually destroyed. That was the claim.
And the SBU put a price tag on it.
A huge one. $7 billion they reportedly claimed it cost Russia. Plus, the claim that these specific bomber types are hard or impossible to replace.
Because they're not being made anymore.
Right. That's the Ukrainian side presented in the sources.
And Russia's counterclaims.
A very different picture. Moscow, as reported, hasn't confirmed any aircraft were destroyed in this operation.
It's just damage.
Just some planes damaged, and only at those 2 bases, Murmansk and Irkutsk. No confirmation of hits elsewhere, according to the sources.
So, starkly different accounts. But the sources do mention some corroborating evidence.
Yes, and this is interesting. They cite videos verified by the BBC
Showing what?
damaged aircraft at Olenogorsk base in Murmansk and Belaya base in Irkutsk. So evidence of some damage at those 2 locations.
It's satellite imagery.
Radar satellite images from Capella Space reportedly show at least 4 badly damaged or destroyed long-range bombers at that Belaya airbase.
And that matches up.
The sources say it matches Ukrainian drone footage that also showed an attack on a Tu-95 there.
So these external verification points, as cited, they lend some weight to the Ukrainian claims of damage, even if the total numbers are disputed by Russia.
Exactly. They provide some grounding based on the source material.
Okay, lastly, how did the information get out? Sources point out a big contrast here.
Yeah, Russian state media was reportedly very quiet about the whole thing, beyond quoting some regional officials initially.
And then the story just Vanished.
Pretty much gone from the news bulletins by the Monday morning, the reports say. Studiously quiet was the phrase used.
Whereas on the Ukrainian side,
Widespread celebration online and elsewhere reported. Someone quoted calling the operation Titanic.
a very different reaction.
Completely. And Zelensky's final comment on Telegram summed it up, didn't it?
What about history books?
Yeah. Of course, not everything can be revealed. But these are Ukrainian actions that will undoubtedly be in history books. Shrouded in secrecy, but seen as hugely significant.
So wrapping this up,
Yeah.
the main takeaway from digging into these sources
Is that this reported spiderweb operation, as described, involved just an incredible amount of planning, complex logistics, deep inside enemy territory.
and clever technological adaptation using simple tools in a complex way.
Right. Commercial lorries, basic quadcopters, allegedly combined for a major strategic effect. It's quite the case study presented here.
So for you listening, what you've heard from these sources offers this really unusual look into the reported mechanics of a huge, unconventional OAC.
Using methods that are, well, pretty far outside the usual military playbook.
It definitely pushes the boundaries of what might have been thought possible based on these accounts.
Absolutely. And just thinking about those core details from the sources, the drones hidden in cabins, the unsuspecting drivers, the remote launch deep inside Russia.
The sheer scale of it all.
What does this specific example, as laid out in these reports, suggest to you about, well, the future challenges of keeping territory secure?
And maybe the unexpected ways that technology, logistics, even everyday civilian life might get tangled up in conflict going forward.
Yeah, it's definitely something to mull over, based purely on the fascinating details presented in these sources.